Good evening, good evening, good evening. We are in the library. Does everyone have a library at home? It's sort of, most modern house designs probably don't have a library these days. It's been replaced by the media room. Anyway, I'm in my little house of Zen tonight. And tonight we have on Make Some Noise, something very, very cool. This is the first time I'm actually doing a chat that's actually not centered around music. So making some noise about growing the person who you are. So this is why I started in the library. We have a mindset mentor with us tonight, and she's going to be explaining all about what she does and helping people to become the best version of themselves. And this is really cool. And we have had a little meeting behind the scenes about having a cup competition and maybe a library competition, but who knows? We will see which is the most inspirational book. So if you have read something inspirational, please type it in the comments because we want to know what it is. More importantly, I want to know what it is. But before we get Laura on, please like and subscribe and share. Like and subscribe and share. So here we go. That's my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. I need some friends. But so here we go. Introducing Laura. Here we go. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. How is everyone?
Well, I'm fantastic. And I've just asked everyone to maybe, share the books, some books, because we'll get to the books very, very shortly about what has motivated them. But would you like to introduce yourself about who you are, where you are, and what you might do? Here we go.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Definitely excited to be asked by Doug himself to actually share with you guys, and it'd be awesome to see who's online and actually tuning in for tonight or today or wherever you are. But my name's Laura Gratton, and I'm here in Brisbane, 7 p.m. And just to share with you a little bit around who I am. Who I am is, I always love to start with this kind of concept because, when you're dealing with mindset and stuff like this, it really comes back to the who all the time. And for me, I grew up in Melbourne for 18 years of my life before I jet-setted across the world for 2.5 years, which eventually landed me in sunny Brisbane. So this was what brings me here now, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But all the life experience, I guess, that I've had has kind of led me to where I'm at now, studying mindset over the past couple of, probably say 8 years now in total, studying personal development, leadership skills, anything mindset related. But yeah, funny story. Doug, if you're happy for me to share around how we actually met.
Yeah, why not? Rock and roll. Yes.
Amazing. So funnily enough, when I moved to Brisbane, I think it's been nearly 3.5 years ago, I was working in a hospitality job.
Wow.
And Doug was actually playing at the place that I was working at. And
that's right. Yeah.
The saying of birds of a feather flock together and like attracts like. And definitely had some very quality conversations around, life itself, a lot of spirituality talks, which I think is super relevant to the who we are as well. But it's just crazy because it was nearly 3 years ago since we met. I since left that job a couple of months after to take, I guess, coaching a little bit more seriously and taking that full time. And that kind of brings me
because I've been following your feed, how you've been actually going around the world and engaging with people, 100%. Which must be fantastic. Actually, we've got some comments already. Oh, here we go. Veronica and Marcus. Hey, Marcus is in Germany. I'll be talking to him very, very shortly. So so getting back to that story about actually crossing paths, and it's amazing how you do cross paths, and there's a resonation. And I mean, I haven't actually physically seen you in over 3.5 years. So
I know, choice of online content, right?
That's right. Welcome to the world of being online.
Do we need to leave isolation? I don't know.
Fantastic. So maybe starting from the beginning of what you do and what kind of people do you help, or maybe if we unpack that a little bit more, what kind of challenges are the people you work with? And while you're doing that, I'm looking like I'm paying attention, but I'm multitasking. I'll do my best. Look.
Go for it. I'll take my time. Well, I guess if it's cool, I'd probably like to go back to, I guess, where my journey started. And
okay, cool.
Some people might resonate with this, some people maybe not. But I think for me, I guess it's an interesting journey because where my journey actually started was probably, as far back as I can trace it, would be around 18, 19 when I started to get into personal development. And for me, I think going through school, I was always, call me the rebellious child, if you will, in a very positive sense. The free-spirited child, or the rebellious kid that was always questioning things. And I guess I enjoyed school, but I didn't really understand the purpose of why I was there, because I grown up in a family dynamic that was very much of the mindset valuing education. They, you know,
Right.
it was always drilled into me from a young age of go to school, study really hard, you know, get a really good career, work until you're 40, 50, 60 and beyond, and then enjoy your life. And I was like, I'm not really, something about my rebellious nature was like, I want to do something, something that didn't end up being that life. I didn't want that to be the long-term outcome. And at 19, I started a small-scale business down in Melbourne. We were selling clothes online, went into retail management for years. And I think for me, that where the journey started of really focusing on my mindset and development was figuring out that for me, working in a career sense was not where exactly I wanted to go, because I was putting a lot into my job. But what I realized quite young, and I'm very grateful I realized this at the age that I did, but I was trading a lot of my time, energy, and ambition into something that was always, you know, it wasn't something I could scale. It wasn't something I could duplicate or leverage.
Interesting
and
words. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was always forever going to be capped off at like a salary type income, or I was always going to be paid, told what my value was at and stuff like this. And I thought, what would it be like if I was to actually transition this free spirit and this energy into something I actually had ownership of? So at 23, call it a quarter life crisis, if you will. They do exist.
Well,
but
yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
For it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess, you know, because there's a few people watching that they haven't seen, obviously, the story that you've unfolded, but I can attest that I've seen all the sharing you've done behind the scenes, and it's like, wow, you're really doing that at that age. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And it's crazy because at 23, I was like, you know what, there has to be more to life. And I don't know where it came from. Like, I didn't grow up in an environment that was all about entrepreneurship, or it wasn't about going and you know, really figuring out what you wanted long term. It was much more in the here and the now. And when I kind of, I guess, thanks for the comment, guys, this is awesome. When I kind of had that quarter life crisis, if you will, I was definitely not in a healthy headspace. And I realized that all my time and energy was going into the job. I was earning quite a good income with my side business and my job, but I was really unhappy. And I realized I was chasing the wrong things in life. You know, income can only provide you so much, but if you don't have time to enjoy it, it doesn't really bring you happiness or satisfaction in life. Yeah, so at 23, this is not what I'm recommending to anyone, but I quit my job, I sold my business, I grabbed a suitcase, applied for a visa, and I went backpacking across the world for 2.5 years.
Right,
and
to find yourself.
Oh, to find yourself, 100%. People are like, you're running away. And I'm like, no, I'm going to discover who I am and what I'm all about when you remove all the externals that, you know, sometimes we identify ourselves through our careers and stuff like this, but we're so much more than that. And yeah, I think, cut a long story short, because travel, you know, we can
that's great.
Days, but
because you remind me of the Matrix, you know, when they say take the red pill or take the blue pill, right? So Joseph Campbell, as we've discussed before, is an inspiration of mine, or probably an inspiration for a lot of people, actually, and I'll explain who he is very shortly. But that's call to action. So when you have an opportunity, like in the Matrix, call to action. Do you have the balls? Well, in your case, maybe not. However, the figure of speech, do you have the I don't know, the guts to just go and do it? Yeah,
courage,
so that's
sure. Big time.
I like that. Yeah,
it's
sorry.
amazing.
Anyway, so you went overseas and looking for yourself?
Yeah, and I didn't really, it was the first time in life I kind of didn't have an agenda or something that I was essentially working towards in like a goal setting sense, or something that was like a long-term outcome. But I think, you know, something that I've figured out going back to mindset is we always, you know, you can kind of identify when you're living life through your values and when you're not. And I realized throughout my experience of, you know, into my early 20s, I really valued freedom above everything else. And not just freedom in terms of, you know, freedom of time, freedom of money, but freedom of choice above everything else. And maybe that comes back to the rebellious spirit. But it was quite interesting. And I think I lived that life for 2.5 years. I worked here and there. I kind of dabbled a little bit here and there. But what really brought my attention was living over there was actually probably the happiest I've ever been. And I realized that if I wanted to create this life for myself, I saw other people living this life and I knew it was possible, but I didn't have it yet for myself. And over space of 2.5 years, found myself in Africa with 20 grand debt.
Wow.
Yeah, needing to sell my car that I stupidly bought at 20 that I didn't really use at all, to buy my flight home. And, you know, I came to Brisbane spontaneously. I didn't want to go back to Melbourne, didn't want to go back to my comfort zone, made a move, started a new life up here in Brisbane. And, you know, 20 grand debt when you're 24 is not great. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you're that young, it's quite significant. And we're not talking about student fees, we're talking about credit card debt. So
yeah, right. Okay, 20%. Yep.
Yeah, it just keeps growing.
Wow.
And I said to myself, I promised myself when I get back to Australia, I wasn't going to live the same life that I had lived down in Melbourne. And I wanted to create something that was my own. And, you know, being 24, 25, I didn't have a lot of, I guess, guidance. I didn't have any resources. I was working back in hospital where I met Doug, which is hilarious.
Yeah, right.
So it all kind of comes together quite nicely in a pretty little parcel. But it really, that was the start of my journey. And I think, you know, for me, the big difference that really transitioned everything in my life was actually seeking a mentor. And I met them when I was 26, but what really amazed me about the people that I'm working with now is that they retired from their jobs in their late 20s, purely from thinking outside the box. You know, they weren't one to follow a career. They were actually thinking about how can we actually generate something that was going to give something to, I love that. Thank you.
LA's from New Zealand, actually. Yeah. So
that's beautiful. I love that every picture's got music on it. I'm feeling very out of place. I feel like I need to sing or like whip out a guitar.
You got a guitar, don't you? Yeah, right. Okay, cool.
In the room, but I did that on purpose. I'm terrible.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
Terrible at guitar, but yeah, and it really it helped me start to transition my mindset a lot of learning how to think outside the box and starting to create something of your own. And throughout the last 2.5 years for me of working with mentors that have created that kind of success, you know, I find that the greatest value in life is find the people that can actually teach you how to build the outcomes you want in life. And it wasn't, what fascinated me about them was really not that they had, you know, a huge amount of wealth. It was their wealth of actual education and information, their wealth of knowledge. And it was super attractive, but it was their humble spirit, I think, more than anything else. That they weren't about, you know, building this huge amount of capital and buying all this crazy stuff. They're really of the mindset of if we have more resources, we can give more resources. And I am one of the mindset that I've tried a lot of different opportunities in life, but that one really resonated with me because it had a mindset around actually helping people in, you know, a global scale. They speak internationally. And I guess that's my long-term vision. I've always wanted to, you know, been in leadership roles from a young age. I've always valued people, but I value freedom alongside that as well, coinciding. And I think if you can start to develop something of your own where you can create a sense of freedom, you have more resources to give, but you also have more to give to others. And what I've learned going back to mentorship, it's really if you want to create different outcomes in life, you have to start to think differently. And for the last 2.5 years that I've been doing that now, coaching and mentoring, quite more like full-time the last 1.5 years, more predominantly, still doing Uber here and there on the side with it. That's a whole other story. That's a great way to meet people. But
oh wow, of course. That's fantastic.
It's fascinating.
And what kind of people are you assisting? Like, where are they at? Are they like got new ideas about, are they building something? Actually, are they building a business or are they actually building themselves?
Probably say more building themselves. I've always seen, it's an interesting concept. I haven't always thought like this, but it really stems back to the who more than it does the what. Because a lot of people that have ideas in life or they have long-term ambition, it's usually from a lack of, I was like, who is that subconscious?
So, sorry. After I told you, turn your phone off, I forgot. So, sorry.
Totally
yeah,
fine.
right. So
it goes back to the who, and I think you know, if you don't, you can have like a goal or an outcome that you want to achieve in life, but for most people they don't have the resources, you know, and they don't maybe think in the way that it takes to actually build success. Because if you think about, I won't go on this topic for too long, but if you think about like the cash flow quadrants as an example is a big thing that I love to reference.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes. Yes, I read that and I was like, I was never a business owner at 19. I was self-employed.
Right.
My egotistic 20-year-old self was like, I'm a business owner.
There's a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah. I had a part-time job. But massive misconception that I had. And I think, something that he talks about significantly in a lot of his book, Cash Flow Quadrants, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Business of the 21st Century is a summarized version of that. And it talks about transitioning your mindset before you can have the perfect business model in front of you, but if you don't think right, you won't create success in the arena. And it's kind of like the McDonald's franchise. They don't have the best burgers in the world, but they've got a beautiful business model that can duplicate.
Yeah, right.
Thanks,
yeah.
Teresa.
Hey, Teresa. She's a great artist. She was on the other night. I really like what you said there. So definitely Kiyosaki work. I understood his cash flow quadrant. I remember reading a book he wrote called Retire Young, Retire Rich. And I was halfway through the book and I just went and bought a house. And but it's fantastic. I mean, as we've spoken off camera, I'm right into that side of things. So well, hopefully big time. So you never know. So after that, but with people, like what other tools do you use to actually help them to get their mindset right? Beautiful. How do you smash their paradigm of how they see themselves?
Oh, I love that. It is about smashing it, isn't it? It's it's quite interesting. You're definitely smashing goals, but something that I found is if anyone follows Simon Sinek, I'm a huge love his work. Yeah, Start With Why is one of his books that he's written, and I should have grabbed that actually. It's a fantastic one.
I've got my list here.
I've got my list. 10, but it's definitely in the top 20.
Okay.
But it's quite fascinating. You talk about Simon Sinek's theory of life, and it's always starting with the why. And I think it's the how and the what's actually the third one. I hope I haven't got that wrong. That'd be really embarrassing. But the relevance of that is that the why starts. And when you have your sense of why and your sense of vision and purpose, you can start to, let's say, reverse engineer from that. So what is it that you want long term? And even a better question than that is how do you want to live? And this probably relates to you as well, Doug. If you think about the lifestyle that you want, well, what is it that you need to do today in order to get there? And a lot of that, there's a lot of different concepts with this, and let's just go general sense, because obviously a lot of people I work with will have different stuff that they need to face or overcome.
Understood.
But a big part of that, if I was to break it down in a couple of different topics, is your habits is utmost important.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey.
100%. Yes, I have that one as well. But it's any habit you can get your hand on, really. What is it?
What's your favorite habit out of the 7?
Atomic Habits is my favorite book, actually, talking about habits.
I liked habit number 7 out of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits. Number 7 was sharpen the saw. So if you want to slay your life, cut through everything and be a hero, habit number 7. So keep learning. You have to be a learning machine. That was the point.
Student of life, right?
Yes. Sorry. Anyway, so keep going. Yeah. So what else do you smashing paradigms?
Exactly. So it's if we go back to the concepts, some very basic principles, and kind of relate this to success principles. These success principles don't change from different aspects of your life. You've just got to get them down pat and actually apply them. And when you kind of look at life, you need to look at it holistically. Let's not focus on just relationships. Let's not focus on, if your career is a big deal to you and that's the long-term goal, that's fine. I'm not against careers. It was just never the agenda that I had. But, let's look at finance. Let's look at your mind. Well, your mindset encompasses all of that. But let's look at the different areas of your life, if you want to call it the circle of life, the wheel of life. If you hone in on one, you can master it, but you're ignoring your weaknesses. And if you want to live a balanced life or a harmonious life, it needs to be a correlation of all of them. So if you stem that back, the success principles is really looking at what do you do on a day-to-day basis to work towards those outcomes. And, a big part of mine that I always focus on with the people I work with is, reading is one. Hello.
You're behind me. Right, let me have a look.
Don't zoom. There's Harry Potter and stuff in there.
All right, okay, too late.
No, it's fine. But there's most of the personal development ones are categorized together.
Okay. Well, I hope you read Harry.
One, and definitely got some books here to touch on as well as a starting point. But without reading and what you're inputting into your mind, your external influences will have a huge part. Who do you surround yourself with? What are you reading? Who is your influencer? But also, we're going back to some basic concepts, is people rely on motivation a lot for success. Whereas I much prefer, from me being an emotional based female, if you will.
At least you're honest. At least you're honest.
I had to really get rid of that because my emotions were never going to dictate my outcomes. They were just there to identify some things I needed to overcome. So I started to look at discipline as an actual, I guess, a purpose to kind of move forward, because discipline is a skill set, motivations, and emotional base. And emotions come and go, they ebb and flow, they're high, they're low, but discipline will always be with you. So it's like,
say that last sentence again about the skill set.
Oh God,
discipline's a skill set.
So motivation is emotional based, and discipline is a skill set.
I like
it's kind of like a mindset as well. So if you,
I'm going to write that down.
Go for it. If you were to rely on motivation as an example, like if you woke up tomorrow and you said, I want to get a 6-pack in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, we can touch on this too. Doug asked me to bring little weights.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I haven't been to the gym in weeks. Got to be resourceful with what you have at home, which is books. I lift books now. But,
right. Okay.
But when you look at it when you look at it from like, if you wake up tomorrow and you said, all right, I want 6-pack in, let's say a couple of months, let's be realistic, maybe a year. And you said, I've got to feel motivated to take action. Well, motivation, you're not going to wake up motivated every day. And Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. And if you start to look at discipline as something that will counteract that, or it's like, your discipline's your mindset, it's how you think. And if you tell yourself, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway, you can start to actually create better results and outcomes for yourself that are long-term, not short-term, much more effective. So there's a couple of different things, like everything's going to stem back to mindset, but it's also how you apply the knowledge. You can't just read a million books and think that your life's going to change. You need to apply that to specific areas of your life. Let's not be the walking libraries.
Right. Well, that's very true. So getting back to mentors, I listened to, I've actually never said this at all, actually, on air with my show. So I actually listened to Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. So hence having this challenge of getting this whole podcast thing off the ground. But I'm a fan of London Real. I don't know if you know London Real. And there's a guy on there called Dan Pena. And he has this, he's really, really brutal. He's an elderly gentleman now. And he has this saying, it's my mantra. I've actually written it in a few places where I actually in my studio, actually, true story. So, and he says this, he says, show me your friends and I will show you your future. So it seems pretty cliche, but it's so true. So when I have moments of time and reflecting, I go, okay, who's been through my creative space? Who's been in the studio this week? Like, who have I worked with? What have I done? So it sounds pretty hardcore, but this is me being vulnerable. Hey, Katie, how you going, Katie?
Hey, Katie.
And how many people thought it was a 6-pack of beer? Bourbon's better. But,
I should have specified, hey? It's terrible advice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But anyway, so I really like that, how you said that it's not just do one thing. You need to be a holistic view. So, so a normal person who has maybe dare I say it, a fixed mindset, say, this is all I can earn, this is all I can do, I see myself like this, and they know they need help of something. I mean, so how do you, what's the first thing that you do to unbolt where they might be at to try and help?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's a very broad one. And I think it's the fascinating part about that, why I love what I do so much. Thanks, Tara. Beautiful.
Oh, we should do the
I'd love to see that.
This is my cool cup. What's your cup look like?
It's the size of my head.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I did have another cup, but I dropped it and smashed it. I've only got the handle left. Anyway, sorry, Mum. I smashed the cup. Anyway, I need another one for Christmas. So I so needed to hear this. Okay, cool. So this point, someone, they recognize they need some kind of guidance. What's the first thing that you do to help unbolt their mindset?
It's really interesting. So why I love what I do so much is that every single person has different challenges that they face. And if you
Right.
really want to, I want to simplify this for people more than complicate it, because you can go in so many different ways with this. But if we're looking at like the general population, is that lots of people don't essentially believe they can do what it takes to achieve their long-term goals. You have to start with your long-term goal first. Like, what is your why? And once you've got specific with your why and what you want that to look like let's go really basic, and let's say, you know, for you, Doug, or something, it might be like, I want to save a specific amount before the end of the year, or I want to interview specific people, right? If we don't have that in our minds of what it is we want to achieve, we can't get there. But when we start with having that concept and that mindset of, okay, well, maybe I want to, let's go basic and say I want to save 10 grand by the end of the year. What is it that I need to do today in order to get there? And you can simplify that from a logical sense. But what sometimes happens with people is they get really caught up with the emotions that play in this. And I'm guilty of this. I'm not pointing fingers. I am guilty of this. And the emotions are not great dictators. They're actually indicators, as I was saying before. So if you don't, good. This is something that hit me last year. This is smacked me in the face. I was listening to a speech at a big leadership conference. And one of the speakers said to me, Laura, if you don't want to be manipulated, why do you live your life through your emotions? And I was like,
that's gold.
Like, right at me. And I was like, fair enough. Maybe I need to shake some stuff up.
Wow. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So it's like, you've got to have logic. You can have emotions, but you don't let them decide where you go. And like, start with your why, figure out what that is, get congruent with it, and whatever the block or the barrier is for you that's telling you that you can't get there, you need to figure out where it comes from, why it's there, and what you need to change in order to move that. And know that it's not something that can happen overnight, because if you're expecting an instant change, you're going to disappoint yourself and your expectations are far too high. And something that, you know, has helped a lot of people is actually showing compassion and patience, not with your external results, but also with your internal, because we all start from a different platform, a different life experience. I actually wrote something today. It was talking about like not judging someone from where they've come from or the choices that they currently make, because you don't know their life story. And it's true. Yeah, and it's really like, we don't. And when you start like really figuring people out, something that's drilled into my mind since I first seeked a mentor, which I wasn't good at, was actually seeking to understand before being understood. Because from a mentor perspective, you aren't teaching people necessarily, like, you're teaching them how to think for themselves. If you know how to think for yourself, you're empowered. If someone's constantly teaching you what to think, it takes away your power. Because I don't think that that's actually conducive to your growth. There's an element of coaching with all things in life, but when you can get to a place that you can start to create better decisions for yourself, and you think with the growth mindset we were talking about before.
Yeah, head on. Yep.
That's when you start to shift some stuff. Yeah, but it's creating, like, you know, I could go on this for days, but it's creating.
No, please do. I love it. Yeah. But I do want to say, so with changing the mindset, so from the mentors, and to be honest, I've actually gone and spent money, and as I've said before, you don't want to know how much I spent. I went and spent 5 days with the Dalai Lama, actually, when he came to Australia. He did a course. And I went and, the amount of stuff just blew my mind. He wasn't pushing the product of being a Buddhist, but all the lessons that came with those, just, this guy's a rock star. You know, he like consults, you know, people, leaders of countries. And anyway, I think I'll tell the story. So about the mandala. So, and I'll tie it back to what you just said about growth mindset. So a mandala is this like really beautiful sand, I don't know, it's a sand piece of art, really. The monks go around with the sand and do it. And they built it for 5 days, and at the end of 5 days, they come and put a broom through it and they destroy it. And so at the end of it, they said, does anyone want any mandala? And I said, of course I do. I spent all this money. I want some colored sand. So I walk up to where the mandala was, and they scoop in this little colored sand in my serviette, and I go and sit down, and for some random reason, he points at me. And how do you feel with your colored sand? I was like, are you kidding me? Out of all the people in the auditorium to pick was me.
Well,
I said, yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel cool with my colored sand. This is cool. I just saw this, and I saw these people do that, put their heart and soul in it, and, you know, make all these messages and stuff, and, you know, and omens. That's another story for another day. And he goes, okay, cool. How are you going to feel when you go home with your colored sand? And I was like, I'm going to feel cool, because it's going to remind me of this whole experience and hanging out with the Dalai Lama. And he goes, and this is what blew my mind. This next point, he said, how are you going to feel like exactly what I'm doing with you right now. How are you going to feel when you tell your neighbor about this experience? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna feel all right. Cool. This was amazing experience. Dalai Lama, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, cool. But how are they going to feel when they see the sand? And so if I showed you color sand, would you care?
If I heard the story, yeah.
Right. Okay. Maybe I should have set that up.
I know where you're going with it, though. It's really
right. So
interesting.
where I'm going with it is his lesson was impermanence. So when something is beautiful and holistic, you appreciate it for what it is. So why do you want to cut the flower off if you can have the whole tree, or vice versa? You don't need it, right? So anyway, that led me down a whole rabbit hole of being I can't even remember the name of it. What do you call it when you don't have much stuff? I can't remember now what it's called. Anyway, massive. What's that? Sorry.
Scarcity mentality. When you don't have stuff and you kind of think you can't earn, you can't.
Well, I become a minimalist. That's what I became, a minimalist. Sure. Yeah, right. So this is a true story. I had 40 guitars and I cut it down to 12. And anyway, I think I'm back up to 30. However, so, you know, rock and roll. But my point being is,
system, Doug.
but yeah, anyway, the thing is from this non-materialistic, no, I just love guitars. It's my minimalist. Thank you. That's what I'm. So,
thanks, Veronica.
But the lesson was impermanence, you know, to really appreciate moments and pay attention and do it. Anyway, so that was my story. Tying it back to what you said about mindset, it's those people think it takes a little while to change your mind about things, but maybe it's just me. It's like instant. Like once I learned about impermanence, and you're really right, that's actually bigger than your head. You just like disappeared.
When I get to the bottom of it would just encompass like my whole face.
You're drinking out of a helmet. Yeah.
Better when it's coffee. This is just tea tonight. So
okay. Yeah, but anyway, getting back to that story it really blew my mind. Yeah, about that. But anyway, getting back to what you were saying, do you suggest your people you work with to put themselves in little situations to make decisions about things? Would you suggest that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to touch on here, and just going back to what you just said before I touch on that, it's very much of the mindset that you were just talking about as well, is something that I'm very guilty of. Is I used to look at people and think, you know, I really want I'm not sure, there's something that you said that just reminded me of this very quickly, and it's looking at people's success and thinking that we're not capable of it, or you know, the understanding, like the value behind things is that we look at people, we go, oh, look how successful they are. They must have had it really easy. Maybe they were born into success. But the thing that I found the most fascinating is actually going into the background, or the, you know, the back scenes, and actually saying, like, what did you actually do to achieve it? And what did you have to overcome to create that success? And you'll start to actually normalize people's success and realize, you know, we may want results in life, but are we willing to do what they did to get there? And that's the real value behind success, is it's not just a theory base of this is what the outcome is. Well, what was the process? What did they actually have to do? But anyway, total tangent. But
that's good.
The question that you had was what was it? Sorry, it was around.
What little challenges do you set? That was in for Veronica. What little challenges do you set your clients to challenge themselves? You know, how put them closer to the edge. So if you want to be better, you have to test yourself to be better. So, and maybe to give you an example of this, so if I have a student who wants to improvise and they go, oh no, I can't improvise, I can't shred yet. The only way to get over that mindset, because you may, or headset, I need to upgrade my cup, I think. Yeah. So the only way to get over that is to by I'm going to steal what did I write down? What you said before? You need a discipline as a skill set. So you need to keep facing the fire. So if you want to bring the fury, you need to face the fire. So I'm just asking of do you ask them to do something brand new they haven't ever done? You know,
100%. Because nothing happens in your comfort zone. Because your brain, and without getting too sciencey here, but like your brain essentially wants you to stay in a zone of comfort, because everything else that, you know, induces fear, your mind's going to tell you, don't go that way, go the other way. That's going to cause some, you know, conflict in your life. And it's actually really interesting because everything actually happens outside the comfort zone. So I'll give an example of that. I'm probably going to use my story, actually. It's probably super relevant to this, but something that has, you know, a fear-induced, something that really brought a lot of fear for me for as long as I can possibly remember was public speaking.
Wow.
Relevant, very relevant. And
I do not see that.
Well, no one would, because it's not something I was open to sharing. And instead of telling people how much I feared it, you know, I would, in high school, I would wag school and I would catch the train. And I don't know if people know Melbourne, but you got the city loop, right? And the train just goes around in a circle, and then it goes back to the end of the line. It comes back, it does a city loop, it goes back. And I had nowhere to go at 17 and 18. So I just catch the train round the city loop and out again and back again to avoid a presentation. Like petrified.
Wow.
I used to have panic attacks. I used to I couldn't stop
So
flashing.
different.
Yeah, I couldn't stop flashing. And then I went into management. I was constantly in fear of like being a leader. I loved people, but I was like, I don't want to step up. I don't want attention. I want everyone to look at me. I wanted to be in the sidelines. And, you know, if I was anything other than that, I was actually just pretending to be confident because I was shit scared. Sorry for swearing.
No.
I'll tone it down. But
that's fine.
Yeah, and it's going back to like a fear in your comfort zone and stuff like this, that if you stay in that zone of fear, you are actually preventing yourself from opportunity. You aren't allowing yourself to grow into your full potential. You aren't allowing yourself to grow into who you need to become in order to have your success. So something I learned, and look, I didn't put my hand up and said, I'm going to do public speaking or something like this, but my mentors recognized that story that I had. And they said to me, okay, we recognize it. And I was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have told them. Maybe they're going to put me in a position where I have to face it. And it was really funny. They were here in Brisbane. They're down in Melbourne at the moment. They came up to do, you know, like a leadership workshop. And I was sitting there sweating. I don't know why. I just felt like they were going to do something. And I hear my name get called to the stage, and they're like, oh, Laura, actually, you can come up and talk about this. And it was mindset related. And I just remember walking up there, and it was like the whole world shut off, and it was just like white. I couldn't see anyone. I was just in my head. I was in my head so bad, like I was so scared. And I got up, and it was if something was like channeling me. I can't explain it, but I just stood there.
Intuition.
Yeah, and I was like, what was I so petrified of? And I started speaking, and I couldn't shut up.
You're an astral.
And the reason why I think it is because, you know, we only have the belief that we have in ourselves, or we have the disbelief we have in ourselves. But when you have someone that actually believes in you and is willing to put you in situations, not forcing you or putting you against your will and stuff like this is a drastic measure, but putting you in that position where you don't have a choice but to show up for yourself. And I got up there and I was like, thank you. And it just, what happens when you overcome a fear or you step outside your comfort zone? What used to hold you back in life actually starts to propel you forward, because if you can overcome that fear, well, what else is holding you back?
Inverting the energy.
Yeah. And now I love it.
You're addicted.
And it's, because it's, you know, what you can do one-on-one coaching and stuff like this, but what I want to do long-term, thank you, Anne. The beautiful photo of you and your boy. It's really fascinating because you start to like expand your horizons. You start to open doors to new opportunities. And when I coach people, I'm not hearing the fear. I'm actually seeing what it is that they said they wanted to achieve. The fear is just a story they tell themselves. You don't, why it's there. You can start.
It's a blanket. Yeah.
Security blanket for sure. But why is it there? Like, what are you so scared of? And a lot of people are either they're scared of success or they're scared of failure. And there's a lot hanging in the way of that.
That's so true.
It is.
There is a fear of success.
I feared success for a really long time, and I feared failure many times. And, you know, different case scenarios and different events of your life, but it's really figuring out, like, what are you so afraid of? Like, if you woke up tomorrow and you knew that you couldn't fail, what would you do? Like, what would you do different? And I think when you have people around you that empower you and they uplift and they support you, because we don't always grow up in environments like this, let's be honest, but when you are surrounded by people like that, and you know there's a safety net or there's like some sense of comfort, it's like you just feel this courage to like propel forward. And I think it's amazing when you actually start to surround yourself with really positive people.
Jenny is our resident from Alabama.
Hey,
in the USA.
nice.
So rockstar.
Beautiful.
So I've got a couple of things here. Sorry, where we've got to break for a second. And also congratulations facing your public
Thank you.
speaking fear. So Scott Watman says, I need to buy some guitars, also a couple of amps too. And then Scotty's a great guitar player. You should see his in-house PA at home. It's 50,000 watts, and I'm not joking. And Guy,
Wow.
long-term guy, by Scott Watman. Guy, is that for you or for me, man? And Teresa Frank says, oh my God, that was my New Year's resolution to do things that took me out of my comfort zone. Terrifying, but so worth it for a change and attracting most amazing things in life. That's fantastic.
I love that.
Hey, Jenny, and everything. Yes, cool. So we should cut to, so I actually went upstairs, and these days the books that I buy, because just being honest here, that I actually put the dollars into buying, material to try and grow the mindset. So I actually found the physical books, so that because digital books don't look so good online anymore. So so hopefully you've picked out some of your favorite books. So this one here, The Power of Intention, Wayne Dyer. This one here, the most significant thing for me, because I guess I'll set the tone for this, is he states about the space influences your emotion, right? And I know this sounds so cliche. You go to the beach, and he says, take your shoes off, right? He actually says, take your shoes off in different spaces, because when you do that, you, resonate with the frequencies going around. Anyway, another concept he says is that you need to build your sacred space, because you need a space that, you can just be you and not be influenced by other things. So for me, having a studio, and this actually really, really influenced me understanding the power of intention, because what do I want to do? So when I do come down to studio, what am I going to achieve? Am I going to get this done or going to get that done? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things. There's always a lot more I want to achieve, because I'm
good.
setting. But anyway, that's book number one. I recommend this. This changed a lot of things. If you're into widening your scope. So your turn.
That's beautiful. It's hard to pick just one, to be honest. So I've got
we'll just pick one to start off with, because I've got a heap too.
I'm going to hold these up, but I'm just going to talk on one.
Oh no, we're going to go through them all, because I've got
a bit
really? Here too. Yeah, I got a bit of a stack too. There we go.
Beautiful. I think
so one book and one important point.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go with the compound effect. Reason being is this is one of the first books that I actually started on. The first book I ever actually read. Love My Cave. I love that, Scott. Men Are From Mars.
Have you read Zen Guitar? No, 100%. I haven't. I want to get that.
I think that's what he was commenting on. It's beautiful. But compound effects are a really interesting one, because it speaks about compounding effects over time, and it's what you do today over consistency of time and what that creates long term. And this can go one or two ways. Like, let's say, let's go back to health. And if you were to exercise every day, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes a day, what that would mean long term for you. Or the opposite of that would be, one donut a week is not going to make a difference at all. But if you were to do that consistently over time, what would that mean long time? So compounding and kind of, I guess, in a sense, duplicating your results as well. You can relate it to finance. You can relate it to relationships. Do you tell your significant other you love them every day, or are you breathing anger and resentment to them? That won't affect a short-term conversation, but over a period of time, what does that mean? What does that start to create? So I think when you start to really simplify that stuff, it's really interesting.
So what's it called? The compound effect. I like it.
It's been around for ages.
And who wrote that one?
Darren Hardy.
Okay, cool. All right, next. So this is probably one of the very first books I read when I was really young. This is a cover of someone. It's called Think and Grow Rich.
Beautiful.
And so the background of this book is actually, it was written by Napoleon Hill, and it's got a purple cover on it. I don't know. I went to some real estate thing and they gave me, anyway. What I really like about this book is it has a concept in there called the mastermind. So whatever you're into, whatever business you're into, whatever. Hey man, how are you? Hey Kelly. You need a team of people to help build, a kingdom, so to speak, has all the king's men, right? And I know I'm just using that as a stereotype picture, but however, if you want to do something bigger and better, you need to have a team of people who are expert in things that you're not. And I guess this really influenced me about different insight, because Andrew Carnegie, who made a ton of money after World War II, who Carnegie Hall in New York is named after Andrew Carnegie, and his son Dale Carnegie wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know if you've read that book.
Oh,
anyway, yeah. So Mastermind from Think and Grow Rich. Okay, your turn. What's next?
Ooh, I'm probably going to say Men are from Mars, Women are from Venus.
Oh, he's cool. Yeah, wow. John Gray. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think the concept behind that is quite interesting, because I think it's really important to know sometimes we put expectations on the opposite sex and expect them to be one thing, but they're not. And it's really important to actually understand the value of the difference of how we actually function as male or female, and start to create some common ground amongst it, you know, and how to create like actual successful relationships. And I think when you can start to end the psyche of like what men need in order to thrive and what women need in order to thrive, it's really important. But it also talks about same-sex relationships too. And I think it's really important. Definitely, because I think it doesn't just have to be a romantic sense as well, like even from a friendship base or family.
Well, I think he's done a revision of that. So, yeah, that's good.
Definitely.
All right, cool. Or the next one here is maybe this. I'm actually halfway through reading this one, Eckhart Tolle. So I can't really tell you about this book, but what was the other? The Power of Now. I read that, and so I actually went. Oh, there we go. That's the book. I couldn't find that book. I've probably loaned it to someone, but I'm halfway through this. So this is the second version, Awakening Life's Purpose. I actually went to a lecture with Eckhart Tolle, and the biggest takeaway that he said, it was amazing speech. But the biggest takeaway was he says that people often say these two words, my life. And, you know, if we replace my life with my car, for example, so it becomes a physical, tangible object. So my car, what have you done to my car? I can't believe my car is no good. I can't believe my car is so stuffed up. It's got all these different things wrong with it. We've got some other books coming up too. The
nice.
Five Love Languages. I love that book too. The Five Love Languages. I took a bit that all day too. And anyway, so his point of the speech was that people keep externalizing my life and they blame others and become a victim mentality, saying my life is so stuffed up because you did it. My life is screwed up because the government did it. My life is screwed up because my cousin twice removed divided by a stepbrother is just so stuffed up. But he said there's no such thing as my life. And he goes, so this is really deep, so please pay attention, everyone. There's no such thing as my life. This is his concept, because my and life are one. They are one. They're not separate. So he says that there's no my life. It says I am. And so anyway, to get your head around, well, for me to get my head around it, it was like really powerful, because it's like, oh, wow, maybe I need to own all those times I was being a victim, you know, about
100%.
Whinging about all these other things happening to me. Anyway, your turn.
100%. Well, I guess that's like kind of coincides with what you just said.
All right. Okay, cool.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there, but, you know,
so
if you're
complex.
into it, you're into it.
Definitely. And I think I wouldn't pick one of these books up like A New Earth or A Power of Now as like a beginning book unless you were into spirituality and you're very open-minded. I still had to reread and go over a couple of concepts in here, but I think really important, like talking about the victim mindset. If you think about things that are happening through you, not to you, you can get out of that mindset. And when you start, you kind of free yourself when you start thinking like that, realizing that you are the only person that you can control. You can't control your external environment. And when I picked this book up, another really important thing was living through the pain body as a negative, because when you start to live through like a pain body of this stuff happened to me or this is my pain, you start to kind of see life around you in a very skewered view. When you start to imagine that you can actually, you know, what is it? There's a gorgeous saying, rock bottom is the foundation of where I built my life. If you haven't had, you know, if you've had a very challenging upbringing, create a story. Set it as the foundation of what you overcame to become, because if there's nothing to overcome, there's nothing to become. Because we don't want to stay stagnant in life. You always want to be in the growth zone.
Say that again. If there's nothing to overcome, there's nothing to become.
There's nothing to become.
Yeah, wow.
It's always been in the growth mindset. When you feel like you've arrived in life, you stop being the student. There's always somewhere else you can go with it. Like resources are there to give back. Resources are there to contribute. Resources aren't there to, you don't want to arrive at, I've made my goal and I've set my path at like you're 25 or 26. Like you don't want to do that at 40. You want to keep growing. You want to keep
evolving.
Thinking about what can I do? What more can I do? Yeah, definitely.
I like that. Here we go. Teresa, the magic. Rhonda Byrne, who wrote The Secret, helps you create positive around relationships, abundance, health, etc.
Good one.
And what you attract. Whoa, Jenny, what's going on there? So, okay, next book. So this one here, it's Bonsai Basics. Anyway, probably this sounds really crazy. Anyway, when I went to Japan, I really wanted to go to a bonsai school, and this is just being vulnerable. So the way of the bonsai is to mindset and be mindful, probably mindfulness. So when you plant a bonsai, I'm just repeating what I've been told, is the roots is your foundation. The trunk is your experience per se. And as your trunk grows, the twigs, so if you've seen a bonsai here, you see how everything sort of grows at one, see it goes down and then it goes left, or in your case might be right, I'm not sure. But what that signifies is that in life, you have to make a decision, a hardcore decision. Like if you have a relationship, you either choose to be or not to be. Like that's it. There it goes.
100%.
It's very right. So that's why the bonsai, every decision that you make hardcore is a memory to remind you, say, hey, I've let go. I'm now this way now. But if this is not going, then you cut one and go back the other way. So I really like that concept. And the branches grow down. So eventually they value that if all this stuff here grows, how it grows over the pot and down lower, is that you go deeper than where you came from. Like you actually crush and destroy all your social paradigms, blah, blah, blah. Now the leaves growing up, they actually trim the leaves growing down. And what that meant is that you actively get rid of thoughts that pull you down. And so anyway, really, really deep. So
that was beautiful. I'm not sure you can top that.
Oh, well, you're going to have to because it's your turn.
Wow. No pressure. I'd probably go into, I don't know, I'm a strong believer of Brene Brown's work.
Oh,
Daring greatly.
Yeah, wow, cool.
Talking about vulnerability. And I think, God, there's so much you can say about it, but I think she really talks about the concept of just being very open with, like in a safe space, you obviously don't be running down the street saying, hey, I've got some things to share with all of you. But, like it's opening up yourself and allowing others that safe space as well. And a lot of us, we have a lot of shame and guilt around how we think and how we feel and think that it's very foreign concepts to everyone else. I think this is super relevant to mentoring as well, that you have to, sometimes I find in a lot of coaching calls, I have to have the courage to speak about some vulnerable experiences I've had so that other people feel open around that as well. But it always takes one person in that dynamic to be able to do that, to create the safe space. And I think the sooner you become okay with your vulnerability and your thoughts and your feelings, you can start to find a lot of confidence in yourself. And also self-respect, I think, directly correlates with that as well.
Yeah,
because life's life. It doesn't matter what you do. You're still going to have things thrown at you left, right, and center. You might as well deal with it.
And have the skill set to deal with it too, to not take it personally. Yeah.
Big time.
And that might, the EMyth. I remember reading the EMyth. I'm not sure. Have you heard of that before?
I actually haven't.
That was very, very cool. And I can't remember what the EMyth was. It was a long time ago. I'll have to come back to that one, but that's a very good one. Anyway, I'll skip to him. This one here, I'm reading this one right now. The Mastery of Self. So similar to what you were saying before about discipline. So some people know that I play guitar, and I actually I fly around the world and I spend my time with the best of the best. I actually do this. I love it. And because I love it, I like to learn different ways really, really deeply about how they think about the instrument and about pushing it forward. And thank you, Trav. He's in Japan. We have people listening from all around the world right now. So Germany, Japan,
that's really cool.
America, New Zealand. This is amazing. Yeah, check out my band. There we go. Thanks, Wes.
Thanks.
Anyway, getting back to this, mastery of self is that you can learn by studying what you do, you learn about yourself. And I'll just say that again. By studying what you do, you learn about yourself. So whatever you're most passionate about, all your actions are automatic. Like if I was passionate about gardening, and I'm passionate about bonsais, but if I was passionate about gardening, everything I do about it is automatic because all the energy comes from a place of passion. So anyway, being long story short, if you look at how you are when you are doing something you love, then how do you duplicate that into the other parts of your life? So your turn.
I love that. Okay, sure. So what to say when you talk to yourself? Super small read. Yeah, talking about like...
You have to hold that up again. Sorry, I had the thing. What to say when you talk? That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the message in that one?
It's not a huge book, but I think it's it's one that I actually started on. And hey, Coolangatta, nice. It's really interesting because it really goes back to a lot of what you were saying as well, Doug, but it's the relationship that you have with yourself. And I think you can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And what's fascinating is the words that we use out to ourselves have a lot of power behind them, and also the words that we speak out loud. And the amazing thing is you wouldn't really speak to your best friend the same way that we would speak to ourselves. So why do we speak to ourselves in a negative context? Usually a lot of it's programmed from a period of time. But you can reverse that, and it kind of leads me into my next one. My favorite kind of Joe Dispenza's work is like talking about reprogramming your mind and understanding that we're in direct control of how we think and how our actions are reflective of that. And if you look at like the way that our brains are wired, well, our thoughts are created from like, neurons creating neural pathways of thoughts. And, they're wrapped in myelin sheath over time. When you create it and you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, you can't eliminate it, but you can redirect it to a new thought that you can practice over time because it's a choice. But when you speak words to yourself, going back to kind of both of those books at the moment, so I hope this makes sense, but it's really important because you are either breathing light and love and courage and determination into yourself, or you are trying to take that away because you don't believe you're worthy of it. And if you can start to be aware of some of your thoughts and the things that you speak to yourself, you can start to redirect some of those thoughts. And something my mentor always said to me is if you have a negative thought and you're speaking negative to yourself, like make fun of it. If you were to say like, oh, you sucked at that, do it in like a stupid voice, don't take it seriously. Start to play around with it. And sure. He's got some beautiful ones. So he's got Becoming Supernatural.
Okay, let me just take
a lot around spirituality, but he kind of I love Joe. Can you see it?
Hang on, let me zoom in. Here we go.
There we go.
There we go. That's for Teresa. Excellent. Becoming Supernatural. Excellent. Yeah. I love that. Cool.
I'd say start with the book, Teresa, of Breaking the Habit of Becoming Yourself, because a lot of his books, they're amazing. They talk about
See you, Travis.
Nice, Travis. You have to think about like where was I going with that? Like spirituality and science. So a lot of people, if you talk about law of attraction and you speak about these concepts, people are like, oh, it's just spirituality based, but there's a whole science behind it. So if you can he bridges it perfectly because he studies neuroscience, but he's a very spiritual man. And he talks about the actual things that happen with your brain waves and your body and the, I don't want to get this wrong, but you're welcome, Teresa. Thank you. It really talks about like what actually happens to create the law of attraction and how, thank you, it is like a wiring of your brain, absolutely. And I think breaking the habit of being yourself is the best one to start off with before you go Becoming Supernatural. And there's also the Placebo. It's another one of his.
Oh, wow. I've heard of that. I haven't read it yet. Work about more knowledge than reading those type of work. And I guess being an artist, I'm a fan of flow state, and I'm going to get to one of these.
Oh, please share in that. You spoke about that on the phone the other day. It's beautiful.
This book here, Intuition. So this is really, really deep, and it's not for the faint-hearted. So so when I say intuition, we go through the world and we see things and we hear things, right? and we can either say it means everything or it means nothing, right? It's completely contextual. But when you're in your flow state, and I guess being a musician, I would do this when I'm improvising, because I go, oh, I look or watch my video back and I was like, oh, wow, I wonder how I did that. Like, because when you're not, I know it sounds crazy, but it's.
No, it doesn't at all.
I'm not consciously thinking. It's like when we speak, we don't think, oh, I'm going to put the hello, Laura, I don't think it, I just do it. So the flow state can happen quite a lot. And if you're aware of it and what you actually do quite naturally to being in the flow state, you can duplicate it. And what this intuition book actually talks about is that when you have a question, maybe the answer comes to you through other ways, because your body is an instrument. Maybe you'll have a feeling, like if you're walking down a dark alley and it doesn't feel right, because it isn't. You need to listen to, like, I'm just saying, because people just block it out. Oh, it's in my head. Or if you go, oh, I think I need to put well, maybe don't gamble. I'm not condoning that. But, I'm just saying you need to be, But anyway, this one about flow state. So if you're in your flow state, hey, Kelly, a lot of NLP elements in Laura's conversation tonight. Love it. There we go. I'm going back to sleep. Okay. Hello.
Where's Jenny from?
Alabama, USA.
Oh, that's Alabama. Amazing.
Here we go. Can you define your use of supernatural in context? Yep, we'll get back to Laura in a second. Later, Gator. Cool. And, intuition. I'm a massive fan, and I guess being in a musical context, and I can just say that. So when I'm playing with really good drummer, a really good bass player, there's this intuition, conversation or reaction, cause and effect that happens, and I can't explain it because it's intuitive. Anyway,
for sure,
I recommend.
It's something you got to read about, I feel, as well, big time, right?
Yes. Oh, by who? Okay, by Paul Fenton Smith. By Paul Fenton Smith. Cool. And it's just, it's this simple. Like when you're walking through the shops and you're navigating a crowd, just feel like where you want to go, and just go, just being intuitive, just navigating, surfing through a thing, surfing through a shopping center. Or if you go to pick something up off a shelf, just go and be intuitive, that's going to be right, that one. I know this sounds really, really basic, but if you practice it, it's an automatic. Yeah. But anyway, I hope I've explained that. Anyway, back to you. Actually, we have a question for you. We have a question.
Not tonight.
Here you go.
Can you define your use of the word? It's really interesting, Veronica. I feel like you need to read the book to fully comprehend what that means. And I think that a lot of words like that, you need to give its own meaning according to yourself. Thanks, Jenny. But for this book, this is one of Joe Dispenza's book. I've read Breaking the Habit of Becoming Yourself.
Wow.
This is the one that I actually want to read next. So I haven't finished that book in any way, shape, or form. The reason I brought it, I said to Doug, I'm like, Joe Dispenza is my favorite. But I've lent that book to someone else, of course, the one that I wanted to touch on. So.
Have you practiced with the Joe Dispenza's work? I've actually practiced making a mantra that you play that when you go to sleep to change your paradigm.
More lately than not, definitely. Not particularly like what he's recommended, but there's a lot of things you can actually listen to, and they'll always talk about how your subconscious is always active even when you're sleeping. So if you're listening to something that's conducive to your growth in your sleep, it's actually still having an effect.
Right. And with all the, I think there's 4 stages of brainwaves. So just before you go to sleep, it's called
it's delta. Alpha, data. Yeah, you're right. I don't know what the one is.
Alpha, beta, delta, and theta waves.
Yeah.
And, I mean, a lot of people like to get to that point just before being unconscious through drugs or whatever to be creative. But you can actually do this, and it's called flow state, is when you're not thinking, it's just automatic. And so it's when your brain, is it slow down, and it just, everything just goes, you become very, very connected. Okay, my next book is this guy, Unlimited Power, medical major in year 1. Oh, wow, let's talk about music. Well, it's not a music show tonight, actually. This is my first non-music show, Jenny. So sorry.
You can try and sing if you want.
Well, you can sing. Anyway, so it's about mindset mentor. So anyway, this is he's been around a long time, and I think he has a lot of good things to say. And what I like about him is he keeps growing himself. So as a mentor, I mean, through this guy, I found lots of other inspirational concepts, and things that you must do. But probably the biggest thing about unlimited power is challenging yourself and actually doing it. So if you want to do something crazy, put it in your calendar and make it happen. And when you face the fear, you can keep moving forward. But anyway, your turn. Next one.
Awesome. Eat that frog. Super, super basic read.
Eat that frog. Wow.
Eat that frog. It's talking about like actually having like what you're talking about, setting goals and stuff like this, but actually beating like your biggest one that really, if you have, as an example, to-do list, you wake up tomorrow and you've got 10 things that you need to do. And there's one that's really daunting, or it's the least likely one that you want to do first. It's like, that one, I can't really be bothered. It talks about getting that out of the way to create more mental space so that everything else kind of flows throughout the day. So for me, it's kind of like exercise. I don't want to exercise ever. But I know it's good for you. So I'm like, I get out the first.
Are you joking? I think you're an exercising freak.
No, it's discipline.
Oh, well,
Never motivated to exercise. It's just knowing that it will give you long-term outcomes if you consistently work at it. So I'm like, if I can get that out of the way, the rest of my day is relatively cruisy.
So that's the whole concept. Eat that frog. Just get the job done.
Just get the job done, but do the biggest thing first.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Well, this is really, really deep for all the people watching my show. So chakras, 7 keys to awakening and healing your energy body. This is really out there. If you're not into it, you're not into it. But if you are, this actually blew my mind, actually. So getting back to music for Jenny, who's actually talking, on my record, track number 3, I actually put little groupings of rhythmics placing and displacing, all based on this system, the 7 chakras. So probably, if you're a believer, just being aware of what each chakra, it's based on the colors of the rainbow. And I mean, 7 is a number that's used 7 days of the week, 7 colors of the rainbow, as I said. And probably the biggest point that sort of blew my mind is that the heart chakra. So I was actually holding myself back because I wasn't loving what I was doing, if that makes sense. So big roundabout way, but anyway, you need to be totally connected. Now, I like what you said at the beginning of the show about a holistic approach. Missing a hand there, or the other hand. There we go. Holistic approach. So gestures don't work if you can't see them. So anyway, this book was really, really good about, it's just another model to be holistic about it. Are there any blockages that are holding you back that are deep seated? Yeah. Anyway, your turn. Another one.
Awesome. The last one I've got is feel the fear and do it anyway. And this was actually quite funnily enough. Yeah. And it's also a very basic read, but this was the very first personal development book I ever picked up. And when I was traveling the world for 2.5 years, I read this religiously for like 2.5 years.
Wow.
I think I read it 3 times. And it's really just recognizing what the fear is and why it's holding you back.
This is for you, Laura.
Can you have fun while you were doing your exercise to change your mindset? Absolutely. Sometimes I have to laugh halfway through my exercise because if I'm in a state of, I don't know, like frustration, you can actually, it's quite interesting. You can actually utilize your emotional state in this sense as well. Like sometimes when I'm angry, it actually works towards my exercise. But also if I'm not in a great state of mind, or let's say you want to have a little bit of fun with it, like just kind of laugh. Like the other day I did some crazy Zumba workout with some of my girlfriends because it was just totally uncomfortable and different, but it got my body moving in a different way. So it kind of threw things up.
All right, you can dance.
There you go. That's what I did. Great advice, Veronica. Thank you.
Well, this is my last one. So Stephen Covey. So he did the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and the Speed of Trust. So I guess
to start with.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just a way of being probably straight to the point. Is do what you say, right? That's probably the biggest thing. But I think that it's good actually comparing a library with someone who actually does this professionally, right? So this is kind of cool. But I've actually have to rewatch the video and write down all the other points. But just dead on week 2.
I don't know if you're from Australia, Teresa. I'd definitely join you on that.
yeah. She's
100%.
I remember where Teresa lives, actually.
Take yourself too seriously, hey?
No. But if there's if you saw, actually, here we go. If you saw me exercise, you would laugh.
Likewise, honey, we're so uncoordinated.
So if anyone else has got any more questions, please let us know, because we might be wrapping this up very shortly, because you probably have to go and do whatever you have to do. But so another question for me. So what, on your journey about, inspiring others and being aware of their mental capacity, their mental mindset.
Valid. Yeah.
Sorry. Do you apply a lot that you actually consume into yourself, and do your people that your clients, do they look at you as modeling to make sure that you're doing what you preach?
100%.
There we go.
You cannot, this is something I'm really, really strong with. What is the meaning of life? Oh, there was a glitch.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's such an interesting question, but I think it's quite interesting, because something I really value around mentorship, it's got to come from a place of experience. And the beauty behind what I do is I can actually leverage off other mentors. Like, my mentors essentially have experience in areas that I wouldn't understand. I'll give you one example of that. Is I'm a single woman. I'm not in a relationship. So if I was to coach and mentor people who are in a long-term relationship, there's only so much advice I can give. And it's really being okay with actually saying to people, hey, this is advice, but it's not coming from a place of experience. And I think if it's not coming from a place of experience, there's only so much of it that you should take on board. It is 42, Teresa. Thank you very much. But I honestly believe there's an element of, textbook knowledge, but then there's also practical base. Like, if you've actually applied it, it's coming from a place of experience, the emotions that entailed with it, the thoughts that came on board. So I always believe in something I'm a big advocate of is teaching from a place of leadership. So you have to lead yourself first by putting yourself out there and doing things outside your comfort zone before you go and teach that to others. And I think that comes from a place of integrity as well. If I wasn't willing to do it, why am I advising it to others? A big part of that comes to public speaking. So,
oh, you're a natural. You got nothing to worry about there. That's amazing.
Practice skill set.
Practice skill set. Okay,
you got to do it a couple of times, right?
Yeah. Well,
you're welcome, Veronica. Thank you so much. But it's true. Like, you can't. I think because it's like Tony Robbins and stuff like that. Like, they've actually gone there and they've been in the arena and they've done the hard yards, and that's why they can coach from a place of like congruency, but also from a deeper scale of understanding. It's not just surface level stuff. I can't effectively coach and mentor unless I'm in the arena doing the hard yards. Am I out there setting an example? Am I out there being true to myself, or am I being a phony? And I think I don't know if that's a proper word or not, but it's important. It's important because you've got to live through your truth and your values so that other people have the empowerment to do that for themselves as well. And if that scares you, good, it should.
Yeah, that's good. So being maybe two more questions later. Is that all right? Do we have time for two?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, and if anyone else is watching, please type now. This is your chance to say something if you want to ask Laura something.
Don't ask me to sing, yeah?
All right, okay.
Not a music show tonight.
That was my next question.
I'll be back up vocals, Doug.
You can do what? Yeah, cool.
Do the Zumba in the background.
Yes, all right, that's cool. So with being holistic, what's probably, besides public speaking, is it been any other challenges that you've just crushed and owned yourself?
It's a really good question. I think overcoming myself. I think a huge part of that is I've definitely been someone that has been my own worst enemy. And that was, do you know what? I'm actually going to reference this to isolation because I think it's super relevant. That I'm a raging extrovert. And a lot of my energy is usually sourced from external point of views. Like if I'm around a big group, I feel really high vibrational and I'm in a really good state of mind. But sometimes when I'm by myself, I can get very caught up in my own mind. And when I hit isolation, I dare say it was like a big fear of mine to actually be by myself and to kind of get in a state of I only had myself, you know. And that for me actually provided a lot of growth and understanding around what was coming up for me in those moments. What did I need to overcome to become a better version of myself? So I think it's important because being an extrovert, sometimes sitting by yourselves is actually really challenging. I always found meditation really challenging. Sitting still for 5 minutes was not something I wanted to do. It's not something I enjoyed. I thoroughly enjoy it now. I won't go a day without doing it. But it's fascinating because it's something, you know, I don't have to be an absolute expert in every single arena, but I've got to give it a go. I've got to understand it. Yeah, because you can do everything in life. Sorry, you can do everything, but you can do anything in life, but you can't do everything. Right?
You can do anything in life, but you can't do everything.
You can't do everything. Because you don't have enough time in your day to master every single skill set. So it's just honing in on what is actually purposeful for you. For me, it's always people, always. And that's why, like, you know, every coaching call I have or everything that I do is actually filling my cup because I'm living through my purpose and my values.
Living through my purpose and values. I'm going to write that down. That's a good one. It sounds like an album title, Living Through My Purpose.
Take it, it's yours.
Okay, that's good. I have a couple of feedback here for you. Here we go. From Kelly. So, bro, yes, this is awesomely a music show, but the relevance of the tangents you occasionally venture off into seem to have escaped some. This is brilliant and very insightful glimpse into the psyche behind achievements, dream and goal set and realization and success. Congratulations, mate. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, sir. He's a great guitar player and singer. And amazing. Teresa, thank you so much for your time. Loved hearing what you had to say, Laura. I think this was definitely meant to listen.
Thanks, Teresa. I appreciate that.
It was a big hugs. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Big hugs back.
Cough up that dictionary, Kelly. Sing those words. I bet you just blew a few minds. Exactly, Laura. You can't do it all. No, that's probably just something else. And it's so hard to narrow it down sometimes. So getting to last question. Actually, before the last question, you just said something about being an expert. Galileo. So I'm sure, is it Galileo? No, Da Vinci. Let's talk about Da Vinci. He actually, there's this concept, you may have heard of 10,000 hour rule, right? If you do something for 10,000 hours, usually called an expert. So in your lifetime, I think you can become like an expert at 8 things, you know, having 80,000 waking hours. But, you know, most people don't do that. But I think Galileo nearly did. Or was it Da Vinci? I'll have to check that out. Anyway, last question. What is one paragraph? No, just kidding. You can say as long as you like. But just parting advice for someone who may be thinking about, do they really need the extra help? Is it just me? Is it just, you know, questioning about reaching out and, I don't know, getting whatever services are out there? Yeah,
no, I totally get that. I think 100%, and I think Einstein puts this really well. He talks about, like, you got yourself to the level in life that you're at from the level of thinking you're currently in. And I think for me,
geez, you're good.
It's one of my favorites. That's a simplified version of his, by the way. His is a lot more complex. I really like his version, but I always forget the exact one. And it's really interesting because I think if you think about any successful leader, sports person in the world, they all have a coach and mentor, because we can only see so much in ourselves.
Everyone. Yeah, Michael
Jordan. Yeah. Prime ministers, they always have someone that's like their right-hand man. They're not there by themselves. You may not see the person all the time when they're up on stage speaking or presenting their, you know, their talks and stuff like this, but they always have someone that is actually giving them guidance and feedback constantly. Any expert will actually pay for feedback because they want external perspective around, you know, what am I missing? What could I improve on? And our own brains won't essentially look at ourselves and be like, you know, oh, you could probably switch. Like if you think about a tennis player and they're swinging for a hit, and let's say they can't see that their elbow's slightly in one position that's preventing them from being better. That's why they pay someone to actually observe and say, this is where you could be fixing some stuff. Because most of us don't want to point out our weak spots. Sometimes we're not even aware. And it all starts with awareness before you start to shift things. So I think parting advice would be, you know, allowing yourself and knowing that you're actually worthy of actually becoming the best version of yourself is a big one. Overcoming your fears, but actually having someone that's accountable with you to your long-term goals and future and what it is that you want to achieve, so that you're not on that journey by yourself. is a big one. And when you can start to think how to think for yourself as well and start to empower yourself that way, it creates long-term success in a lot of different aspects of your life.
And I really like that. And I think also to think of it as an investment, not an expense.
Big time.
If you put that money into something, you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to change it. Well, this has been amazing. I'll just quickly, I'll just see if there's any other comments here. Behind every great man, there's usually a great woman rolling her eyes. Okay. Here you go. So living through my purpose and value, love it, consider it shared. Awesome. Well, please stay on the line and please wave out with your coffee cup or your coffee bucket, whatever you got there.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Oh, actually, how do people find you? Are they allowed to get
by all means. Easiest. I don't have a website or anything like that. I guess I am my own business, so it's just through Instagram. Last name Gratton, so just on the screen, but with 4 N's because someone stole my name, or I stole their name. I don't know, but it's just Gratton with 4 N's. Otherwise, on Facebook is Laura Gratton. There is another lady that is identical to me by that name too. So I think my profile picture, I'm wearing polka dots, if that helps. You're welcome, Martin. But Doug, I just want to say thank you so much for actually having me on the show tonight. This has been an absolute delight. I know this is a first for you as well. It's a massive privilege for me to actually be able to do this with you and collaborate in something that's unique to this show. I'm sorry that I haven't sang tonight, guys.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I think you'll thank me if you heard me out loud.
Fair enough. I want to say thank you for coming on too. So and hopefully we can do this again because I have some other ideas to keep, doing other concepts. All right, cool. Beautiful. All right.
I'm send you lots of love.
Thank you. And please stay on the line and I will speak to you in a second. So thank you very much, everyone. Please look up Laura and like and subscribe to everything she's involved with. There's some, if you rewatch this, there's some awesome content. Please join my YouTube channel because I need some friends. So, and like and subscribe and please share and all that kind of stuff. And please I keep forgetting, Doug D. Jong music because that's where it's being posted. Thank you very much. I'll see you. Hang around 9 o'clock, going live in Germany. See you soon.